Springfield Board of Mayor and Aldermen is called to order. Please stand and we'll have the pledge. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
.2, our moment of silence.
Our Father, indeed, we are thankful for this opportunity to gather and to work and to operate as a city. We pray that you bless this meeting tonight. We also pray, our Father, that you remember, as we remember all of our veterans and those that have fought for our country in this upcoming Memorial Day, and all that we do, may your will be done. From Christ's name we pray. Amen.
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 1.3, the approval of the minutes for the regular meeting of the Board of Mayor and Aldermen held on April 18th, 2023. Do I hear a motion? Motion by Alderman Green and a second by, I'm sorry, she flipped the screen. Who was the second by?
Mr. Hubbard, I think.
Mr. Gregg. Are there any corrections to the minutes? No corrections? We're ready for a vote. Anyone like to change their vote? Please record the votes.
Motion passes 6-0.
Thank you. 1.4, a public hearing. Public hearing number 1, ordinance 23-08, an ordinance amending ordinance 14-14 relative to the adoption of the building code. If you would like to speak, please come to the mic, state your name, and you have 2 minutes. Would anyone like to speak? No one would like to speak. Public hearing number 1 is closed. Public hearing number 2, ordinance 23-09, or ordinance amending ordinance 14-15 relative to the adoption of the plumbing code. If you would like to speak, please come to the mic and state your name. No one would like to speak? Public hearing number 2 is closed. Public hearing number 3, ordinance 23-10, ordinance amending ordinance 14-16 relative to the adoption of the mechanical codes. If you'd like to speak, please come to the mic. No one like to speak? Public hearing is closed. Public hearing number 4, ordinance 23-11, ordinance amending ordinance 14-17 relative to the adoption of the property maintenance codes. If you would like to speak, please come to the mic. No one would like to speak? Public hearing number 4 is closed. Public hearing number 5, ordinance 23-12, or ordinance amending ordinance 14-18 relative to the adoption of the Energy Conservation Code. If you would like to speak, please come to the mic. No one would like to speak? The public hearing is closed. Public hearing number 6, ordinance 23-13, or ordinance amending ordinance 14-19 relative to the adoption of the fire codes. If you would like to speak, please come to the mic. If no one would like to speak, public hearing number 6 is closed. Public hearing number 7, ordinance 23-14, or ordinance amending ordinance 14-20 relative to the adoption of the gas codes. If you would like to speak, please come to the mic. Okay, public hearing number 7 is closed. Public hearing number 8, ordinance 23-16, or ordinance adopting the existing building codes. If you would like to speak, please come to the mic. If no one would like to speak, public hearing number 8 is closed. Public hearing number 9, ordinance 23-15, or ordinance abandoning certain right-of-ways on Delight Court. If you would like to speak, please come to the mic. No one would like to speak? Public hearing number 9 is closed. We will move on to our legislative agenda. 2.1, discuss and possible take action on ordinance 23-08 on a second and final reading. Ordinance amending ordinance 14-14 relative to the adoption of the building code. Do I have a motion? Motion made by Alderman Hubbard, second by Alderman Gregg to discuss. Questions? Board? No questions on this? No? We're ready for a vote. Hold on, we're having technical difficulties. We'll vote in just a second. It'll be just a second. May have to go back to the old-fashioned
What
way.
is that, we're gonna do roll call?
Okay, we're ready for a vote. Screen's back up. Anyone like to change their vote? Please record the votes.
Motion passes 6-0.
Thank you. 2.2, discuss and possible take action on ordinance 23-09 on a second and final reading. Or ordinance amending ordinance 14-15 to the adoption of the plumbing codes. We have a motion made by Alderman Green, a second by Alderman Hubbard to discuss. Any questions? No questions? We're ready for a vote. Anyone like to change their vote? Please record the votes.
Motion passes 6-0.
Thank you. 2.3, discuss and possible take action on ordinance 23-10 on a second and final reading. Or an ordinance amending ordinance 14-16 relative to the adoption of the mechanical code. We have a motion made by Alderman Gregg, a second by Alderman Hubbard. Any questions on the adoption of the mechanical code? No questions? We're ready for a vote. Anyone like to change their vote? Please record the votes.
Motion passes 6-0.
Thank you. 2.4, discuss and possible take action on ordinance 23-11 on a second and final reading. Or ordinance amending ordinance 14-17 relative to the adoption of the property maintenance code. We have a motion to discuss by Alderman Hubbard and a second by Alderman Green.
Yeah,
Yes, sir.
I'm just appealing to all the citizens property owners. We want a clean city. So please, if you have people living in your rental properties, and I'm gonna go out and say it, okay? Please, check it out, because I'm tired of looking at, and I'm speaking in particular for the ward that elected me. Citizens coming out of my ward that elected me, they're tired of seeing rundown houses that are being rented to people, okay? So I'm just saying to the property owners, please concur. Please concur, because we want a beautiful Springfield.
Thank you. Anyone else? We're ready for a vote. Anyone like to change their vote? Please record the votes.
Motion passes 6-0.
Thank you. 2.5, discuss and possible take action on ordinance 23-12 on a second and final reading, or ordinance amending ordinance 14-18 relative to the adoption of the Energy Conservation Code. We have a motion to discuss by Alderman Hubbard and a second by Alderman Green. Any questions? No questions, Alderman? We're ready for a vote. Anyone like to change their vote? Please record the votes.
Motion passes 6-0.
Thank you. 2.6, discuss and possible take action on ordinance 23-13 on a second and final reading, or ordinance amending ordinance 14-19 relative to the adoption of the fire codes. We have a motion to discuss by Alderman Hubbard, a second by Alderman Green. Any discussion? No discussion? We're ready for a vote. Anyone like to change their vote? Please record the votes.
Motion passes 6-0.
Thank you. 2.7, discuss and possible take action on ordinance 23-14 on a second and final reading, or ordinance amending ordinance 14-20 relative to the adoption of the gas codes. Motion made by Alderman Green, a second by Alderman Hubbard to discuss. Any questions? Ladies and gentlemen. No questions? We're ready for a vote. Anyone like to change their vote? Please record the votes.
Motion passes 6-0.
Thank you. 2.8, discuss and possible take action on ordinance 23-16 on a second and final reading, an ordinance adopting the existing building codes. Motion made by Alderman Green to discuss and a second by Alderman Hubbard. Any questions on this? Second and final reading. No questions, discussion? We're ready for a vote. Anyone like to change their vote? Please record the votes.
Motion passes 6-0.
Thank you. 2.9, discuss and possible take action on ordinance 23-15 on a second and final reading, or ordinance abandoning certain right-of-ways on Delight Court. Motion made by Alderman Green and second by Alderman Hubbard. Any questions? No questions? We're ready for a vote. Anyone like to change their vote? Please record the votes.
Motion passes 6-0.
Thank you. Sorry, folks, I have bronchitis and I'm about to lose my voice, so bear with me, please. 2.10, discuss and possible take action on ordinance 23-17 on a first reading, or ordinance amending the fiscal year 2023's annual budget for the city of Springfield by amending certain general fund and utility fund operating budget. We have a motion by Alderman Hubbard and a second by Alderman Green, and I'm going to call on Ms. Melissa to read this.
Ordinance 23-17, an ordinance amending the fiscal year 2023 annual budget for the city of Springfield by amending certain general fund and utility fund operating budgets. Whereas it is necessary to amend the City of Springfield annual budget for fiscal year 2023 in order to meet the requirements of the city charter. Now therefore be it ordained by the Board of Mayor and Aldermen of Springfield, Tennessee, that the City of Springfield annual budget for fiscal year 2023 is hereby amended to make necessary changes to expenditures and revenues within the funds and departments as set forth in Exhibit A attached. All ordinances, resolutions, and policies in conflict herewith are hereby rescinded to the extent of the conflict only.
Thank you. I'm going to call on our city manager, Mr. Ryan Martin.
Thank you, Mayor. This is the first of our final budget amendment for FY '23, hopefully. And it includes a couple of things that are of importance. The golf course, we're doing some amending to their budget to clean up some things at the end of the year, as well as account for the damage to the clubhouse roof that's going to be replaced. Not all of that will be covered by insurance. We're going to have to cover a piece of that because insurance only wanted to cover a portion of the damage, and there was a lot of damage. So we're going to pick up the rest of the tab on that. The second part of this amendment is the repayment of $262,000 to TDOT. That was the amount of that $1.1 million grant that we had spent on the Batson extension before we dismissed TDOT from the process, if you will. And so fortunately, it only took them 9 months to let us know and come up with that number. So, and I think I sent you all that message that we received, finally acknowledging our withdrawal from that program. And we're well underway on construction, so I'm glad they didn't have an issue because it would have been a few months too late. So that's this budget amendment. If you have any questions, let me know.
Thank you. Any questions? Yes, sir.
Comment on the budget?
This is the FY '23 amendment. The
These are the
FY
changes.
'24 budget will be next.
That's 2.11. Any questions on these changes? No questions? We're ready for a vote. Anyone like to change their vote? Please record the votes.
Motion passes 6-0.
Thank you. 2.11, discuss and possible take action on ordinance 23-18 on a first reading. An ordinance adopting the annual budget and the tax rate for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2023 through June 30th, 2024. We have a motion by Alderman Hubbard, a second by Vice Mayor Harris to discuss, and I'm going to call on Miss Melissa to read this, please.
Ordinance 23-18, an ordinance of the City of Springfield, Tennessee, adopting the annual budget and tax rate for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2023, and ending June 30th, 2024. Whereas Tennessee Code annotated 9-1-116 requires that all funds of the state of Tennessee and all its political subdivisions shall first be appropriated before being expended, and that only funds that are available shall be appropriated. And whereas the Municipal Budget Law of 1982 requires that the governing body of each municipality adopt and operate under an annual budget ordinance presenting a financial plan with at least the information required by that state statute, that no municipality may expend any monies regardless of the source except in accordance with the budget ordinance, and that the governing body shall not make any appropriation in excess of estimated available funds. And whereas the Board of Mayor and Aldermen has published the annual operating budget and budgetary comparisons of the proposed budget with the prior year actual and the current year estimated in a newspaper of general circulation not less than 10 days prior to the meeting where the board will consider final passage of the budget. Now therefore be it ordained by the Board of Mayor and Aldermen of the City of Springfield, Tennessee as follows: that the government body projects anticipated revenues from all sources and appropriates planned expenditures for each department, board, office, or other agency of the municipality, herein presented together with the actual annual receipts and expenditures of the last preceding fiscal year and the estimated annual expenditures for the current fiscal year, and from those revenues and unexpended and unencumbered funds as follows for fiscal year 2023, and including the projected ending balances for the budget year, the actual ending balances for the most recent ended fiscal year, and the estimated ending balances for the current fiscal years as set forth in Exhibit A attached. At the end of the fiscal year 2023, the governing body estimates fund balances or deficits as set forth in Exhibit A attached. That the governing body herein certifies that the condition of its sinking funds, if applicable, are compliant pursuant to its bond covenants, and recognizes that the municipality has outstanding bonded and other indebtedness as set forth in Exhibit A attached. During the coming fiscal year 2024, the governing body has planned capital projects with proposed funding as set forth in Exhibit A attached. It is reasonably expected that the municipality will reimburse itself for certain expenditures made by it in connection with the planned capital projects through the issuance of debt. This ordinance shall be placed in the minutes of the governing body and shall be made available for inspection by the general public at the office of the governing body. This ordinance constitutes a declaration of official intent under Treasury Regulation Section 150-2. No appropriation listed above may be exceeded without an amendment of the budget ordinance as required by the Municipal Budget Law of 1982, TCA 6-56-208. In addition, no appropriation may be made in excess of available funds except to provide for an actual emergency threatening the health, property, or lives of the inhabitants of the municipality, and declared by 2/3 vote of at least quorum of the governing body in accord with Tennessee Code annotated 6-56-205. Money may be transferred from one appropriation to another in the same fund only by appropriate ordinance by the governing body, subject to such limitations and procedures as set by the Board of Mayor and Aldermen pursuant to Tennessee Code annotated 6-56-209. Any resulting transfers shall be reported to the governing body at its next regular meeting and entered into the minutes. A detailed financial plan will be attached to this budget and become part of this budget ordinance. In addition, the published operating budget and budgetary comparisons shown by fund with beginning and ending fund balances and the number of full-time equivalent employees required by Tennessee Code annotated 6-56-206 will be attached. There is hereby levied a property tax of 1.0720 per $100 of assessed value on all real and personal property. This annual operating and capital budget ordinance and supporting documents shall be submitted to the Comptroller of the Treasury or Comptroller's designee for approval. If the city has debt issued pursuant to Title IX, Chapter 21 of the Tennessee Code annotated within 15 days of its adoption, this budget shall not become the official budget for the fiscal year until such budget is approved by the Comptroller of the Treasury or Comptroller's designee. In accordance with Title IX, Chapter 21 of the Tennessee Code annotated the statutes. If the Comptroller of the Treasury or Comptroller's designee determines that the budget does not comply with the statutes, the governing body shall adjust its estimates or make additional tax levies sufficient to comply with the statutes or as directed by the Comptroller of the Treasury or Comptroller's designee. If the city does not have such debt outstanding, it will file this annual operating and capital budget ordinance and supporting documents with the Comptroller of the Treasury or Comptroller's designee. If for any reason a budget ordinance is not adopted prior to the beginning of the next fiscal year, the appropriations in this budget ordinance shall become the appropriations for the next fiscal year until the adoption of the new budget ordinance in accordance with the Section 6-56-210. Tennessee Code annotated provided sufficient revenues are being collected to support the continuing appropriations. Approval of the Comptroller of Treasury or Comptroller's designee for a continuation budget will be requested if any indebtedness is outstanding. All unencumbered balances of appropriations remaining at the end of the fiscal year shall lapse and revert to the respective fund balances. All ordinances or part of ordinances in conflict with any provision of this ordinance are hereby repealed. This ordinance shall take effect July 1, 2023, the public welfare requirement.
Thank you, Ms. Brown. For those of you that haven't attended before, in our long past, I've been here 14 years, and I know that we used to, you think this is bad? we used to have all the numbers in the budget too, so that was something that the role of Ms. Brown would have had to read all those numbers too. So you did an excellent job. We have broke you in well now, so thank you. I'm gonna call on our city manager, Mr. Ryan Martin.
Thank you, Mayor. Two things I want to point out to you about the budget ordinance. This is the FY '24 budget that we discussed last week at the work session with just shy of $122 million of expenditures. In the ordinance, you will notice, excuse me, two things. Or in the exhibit, you'll notice one, we have increased the sanitation an extra $1 based on our discussion at the work session. And then also in the ordinance, the tax rate still says $1.07 2/10. We will have to come back when we get the certified tax rate from the assessor's office and amend that, which, as you know, should be about 70 cents. So we're looking at going down 37 or so cents in the tax rate if that ends up being the certified tax rate. As soon as we receive that, then we'll amend that. We will not be assessing $1.07 2/10. I want to make that very, because that will concern folks with their new assessments. We will not be assessing $1.07 2/10 property tax. We'll wait on the certified tax rate, the new one from the assessor's office.
Thank you. Thank you for pointing that out, because that has been a lot of confusion and a lot of questions and phone calls from folks. The tax rate will go down. We don't set that, but as soon as we get that, that will be much lower.
Absolutely.
Yes, sir. Mr. Hubbard, it's your turn.
Certainly, City Manager, I must thank you for the conservative derived budgets. And to all your managers, we thank you guys and ladies for working very hard. And I'm proud of the efforts. I'm proud of the money you saved the city. And I'm proud of the professionalism that you all exemplify to make this a great city. So the public need to know that.
Thank you.
Very long.
Thank you, Mr. Hubbard. And that's true. We sat here in this room last Tuesday night and went over the budget. And I'm very proud to say that we are actually paying cash for things now. It's taken a long time to get to this point, and those are things that you want to do in your own households, and we definitely want to do that with the city money that we are here to make sure is being spent appropriately. So thank you for the job well done to all of you, not just Mr. Martin, but there's all of you sitting out here has spent a lot of time. I think you've been working on this since January, right? January? That's when he starts sending those emails and making me meet with him and all.
Terry Martin started earlier than that, I think.
Terry Martin, when did you start? Did you start in November?
Didn't do him much good.
Overachiever? Terry's not real happy with his budget.
No, he didn't do him too good starting early.
Sure did.
Terry, next year I would suggest you be the last department.
Get your wish list.
Yeah, he said he didn't get nothing in his budget, and I think that's what I heard him say last Tuesday night. Do we have questions about this budget? Any questions or discussion? No questions, no discussion? We're ready for a vote. Anyone like to change their vote? Please record the votes.
Motion passes 6-0.
Mr. Terry Martin, we're sorry we have to pick on you at every meeting, but, you know, you have been in the movies. 2.12, discuss and possible take action on ordinance 23-19 on a first reading, or ordinance rescinding ordinance 18-13 in its entirety, and setting a new schedule of rates and charges for the sanitation services. Motion made by Alderman Hubbard, a second by Alderman Green to discuss. I'm going to call on Miss Melissa Brown to read this. This is not bad. It'll only be a minute.
Ordinance 23-19, an ordinance rescinding ordinance 18-13 in its entirety and amending Title 17 of the Springfield Municipal Code entitled Refuse and Trash Disposal by amending Chapter 1 entitled Refuse Collection by rescinding Section 17-116 entitled Sanitation Rates in its entirety. Whereas it has become necessary to increase sanitation rates in order to pay for increased cost of operation, maintenance, and debt service for refuse collection services. And whereas Article 4, Section 13 of the Charter of the City of Springfield requires that the establishment of fees and charges be accomplished through legislative action, which must be exercised by ordinance. Now therefore be it ordained by the Board of Mayor and Aldermen of Springfield, Tennessee as follows. Ordinance 18-13 is hereby rescinded in its entirety, and Title 17 of the Springfield Municipal Code, entitled Refuse and Trash Disposal, is hereby amended by amending Chapter 1 entitled Refuse Collection by rescinding Section 17-116 entitled Sanitation Rates in its entirety, and substituting a new section 17-116 to read as set forth in Exhibit A attached. All ordinances, resolutions, and policies in conflict herewith are rescinded to the extent of the conflict only. This ordinance shall become effective with billing of July 1, 2023.
Thank you. Mr. City Manager,
Thank you
I
again,
know you want to
Mayor.
talk about this.
Well, I guess.
You've worked very hard on this budget.
This budget, of course, we originally proposed a $1 sanitation rate increase, and at the work session last week, we discussed upping that to $2. In your packet, you will see the Middle Tennessee comparison. We do have the lowest sanitation rates in Middle Tennessee for cities that do sanitation. Some don't. And so we do have the lowest sanitation rates, and it is cost of equipment, cost of disposal, with those type of things going up and inflation, we haven't done a sanitation increase or had a sanitation increase in a while. So this amounts to $2 per month per household. So an extra $24 a month for each household that has sanitation collection service. This accompanies the revenue component in the budget that you just passed, but this officially changes the sanitation rates effective July 1st.
Thank you. Thank you for pointing these out, because looking around at our neighbors, you're right, we're paying the lowest and still will be if we do this. Any questions?
I'm just glad that we could hold it down,
Yes.
and our population must understand that sanitation services, as we grow, it goes up. And I think your department did a great job in making sure the refuse, limbs and stuff are really, and also, you have to pay for those big trucks. So we got to think about that.
Okay. Discussion? No discussion on this side? Anyone else? No one else? We're ready for a vote. Anyone like to change their vote? Please record the votes.
Motion passes 6-0.
Thank you. 2.13, discuss and possible take action on ordinance 23-20 on a first reading. An ordinance abandoning the certain right-of-ways on Robmont Drive. We have a motion by Alderman Green and a second by Alderman Hubbard. I'm going to call on Ms. Melissa Brown to read this ordinance.
Ordinance 23-20, an ordinance abandoning Rodmont Drive and the entire right-of-way located thereon. Whereas Culver Engineering, representing MBG Property Management LLC, has requested an abandonment of Rodmont Drive and the right-of-way being approximately .79 or 34,260 square feet to be abandoned by the city of Springfield. And whereas the Springfield Planning Commission has reviewed the request on May 4th, 2023, and recommends Rodmont Drive and the right-of-way to be abandoned. Now therefore be it ordained by the Board of Mayor and Aldermen of Springfield, Tennessee as follows. The roadway and right-of-way being recorded in Plat Book 23, page 142, located between map 102, parcels 25, 2501, 2502, 2503, 2504, of the tax maps of Robertson County, approximately .79 acres, shown in Exhibit A attached, will be abandoned by the city of Springfield. Owner of the property shall be responsible for obtaining all surveys and legal adjustments to amend the property deeds of properties involved, and shall be responsible for all costs for said work. The property owner will be the sole owner and responsible of all drainage structures on said property. All ordinances and policies in conflict herewith are hereby rescinded to the extent of the conflict only. This roadway and right-of-way abandonment shall become effective following its second and final passage as required by law.
Thank you. Mr. Martin?
Thank you, Mayor. So this is a full abandonment of the right-of-way in the Robmont subdivision on Tom Austin. It's the empty cul-de-sac. The owners of the property, and I believe someone's here from the engineering firm, Clover, if you have any questions. But they want to abandon that right-of-way, which means we will no longer have that on our street map, and we will no longer maintain that right-of-way, and I believe they intend to develop the property at large and just have access off of Tom Austin.
Okay, thank you. Questions? Okay. No questions? We're ready for a vote. Anyone like to change their vote? Please record the votes.
Motion passes 6-0.
Thank you. 2.14, discuss and possible take action on Resolution 23-12, a resolution declaring certain property surplus and authorizing the disposal of such properties. Motion made by Alderman Green, a second by Alderman Hubbard to discuss. This is our monthly bookkeeping. Any questions? No questions? We're ready for a vote. Anyone like to change their vote? Please record the votes.
Motion passes 6-0.
Thank you. 2.15, discuss and possible take action on Resolution 23-13, a resolution authorizing the Springfield Robertson County Airport to participate in the Tennessee Consolidated Retirement System. We have a motion made by Vice Mayor Harris and a second by Alderman Green. I'm going to call on Mr. Martin before I ask for questions.
Thank you, Mayor. So this resolution authorizes the participation for the airport board employees to participate in TCRS. As we've talked about many times, the airport employees currently have no benefits. They do not have retirement or health insurance available to them. The Joint Airport Board, they're working on that. They're working on getting them on the state health insurance plan or some alternative that provides them with a health benefit as well as participation in retirement. However, both of the entities involved, governing bodies, have to authorize them to participate in TCRS. So all this a resolution does is authorize the participation of the airport employees in TCRS, similar to the way we do the library. If for whatever reason the participation in TCRS this year is not funded, then they will not sign up. So if the county does not come alongside and fund that portion of the airport board's budget, then they will not sign up. That's the pledge that they've made, but this just merely authorizes it.
Okay, thank you for the explanation. Questions? Like we've done for the library. No questions? We're ready for a vote. Anyone like to change their vote? Please record the votes.
Motion passes 6-0.
Thank you. 2.16, discuss and possible take action on Resolution 23-14, a resolution amending the city's personnel policy manual. Motion made by Alderman Green, a second by Vice Mayor Harris to discuss. Any questions on this policy change? Policy manual change? No questions? We're ready for vote. Anyone like to change their vote? Please record the votes.
Motion passes 6-0.
Thank you. 2.17, discuss and possible take action on Resolution 23-15, a resolution accepting the irrevocable letter of credit from Poplar Ranch Ventures LLC to guarantee the completion of the infrastructure improvements in the Eden Point subdivision. Motion made by Alderman Green and a second by Alderman Arnold. I'm going to call on our city manager. Did you want to speak on this?
No, I don't have to. It's just an irrevocable letter of credit for Eden Point for performance. It is a renewal. It's an extension of a previous one. This one for a lower amount for the completion of infrastructure. Same thing we do all the time. Planning Commission approved it and recommended your approval as well.
And this is in phase 2.
Correct.
Any questions? No questions? We're ready for a vote. Anyone like to change their vote? Please record the votes.
Motion passes 6-0.
Thank you. Moving on to our administrative agenda, 3.1. Discuss and possible take action on the adjustment of the retail electric rates of the Springfield Electric Department due to a wholesale fuel cost adjustment by the Tennessee Valley Authority. Do we have a motion? Motion made by Alderman Green, a second by Vice Mayor Harris to discuss. Mr. Terry Resha, I'm gonna call on you, and I hope it's good news. Yeah, but the way you presented that. Gee. And for the audience, this is a pass-through. I'm still gonna beat him up and act ugly to him. He deserves it. Any questions? No questions? We're ready for a vote. Anyone like to change their vote? Please record the vote.
Motion passes 6-0.
Thank you. 3.2, discuss and possible take action on the adjustment of the monthly gas rates of the Springfield Gas Department. Motion made by Alderman Green, a second by Alderman Hubbard to discuss. Mr. Cox.
It's going down 28.7.
That's how you do things. Thank you. You can come back every month and fill in for Mr. Ribble. Yes, sir.
Mayor, if I can point out, I want to draw your attention on that particular agenda item to the chart. These are the lowest that gas rates have been, and of course, this is for electric rates. We have the TVA fuel cost adjustment. For gas, we have the purchase gas adjustment because we have to buy natural gas on the open market. Natural gas prices, if you look, have gone way down. They're down in the $2 range again, which is very good, and it wasn't long ago that we were talking about approval and authority to buy $10 gas. And so with it being back down in the $2 range, that's helpful. But if you look at that, that's the lowest. These rates that we'll have next month are the lowest rates that we've had in a year. So that's phenomenal. That's not where we expected to be right now based on the instability we saw a few months ago.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Yes, coming from a gas producing state, Texas, I'm so glad that
How do we
the
know
natural gas association is listening and bringing it down. So keep up the good work. Stay in their ear.
Any questions? No questions? We're ready for a vote. Anyone like to change their vote? Please record the votes.
Motion passes 6-0.
Thank you. 3.3, discuss and possible take action on the renewal of the interlocal agreement for the Consolidated Emergency Dispatch Service through the E911 district. Motion made by Alderman Green, a second by Vice Mayor Harris to discuss. Questions on this agreement?
It's about where we were last time, or is it up? Or?
It's up a little bit. It's up from, I think it was $375 roughly this past year, or our current fiscal year. It's going up to $410,000. A lot of that, I believe, is due to of course, remember, we pay for salaries. That's what the interlocal agreement is for, salary and benefits. And so the dispatchers were significantly behind from a pay perspective, and I think the 911 board voted on an increase, and that's what is reflected here in our portion.
Okay. Yes, sir.
No, I just wanted to comment, as long as, Mr. Martin, you feel that the others are attempting to pay their fair share.
They are, absolutely. I mean, I think that we saw that happen. Yeah.
Their feet a little bit years past.
Yeah, absolutely. It's on a, everyone's together now. Everyone has their fair share. It's not Springfield and White House shouldering the load, and so it's very equitable. And so it's based on the cost formula, the same cost formula we've been using for the last couple of years, and we feel good about it.
That's good.
And we appreciate not having to have dispatching ourselves. It helps to have consolidated dispatch.
That's true.
Yes. Yes. We've come a long ways for this agreement now to be passed out to the actual people that are using it. Any questions? No questions? We're ready for a vote. Anyone like to change their vote? Please record the votes.
Motion passes 6-0.
Thank you. 3.4, discuss and possible take action on a presentation from Jim Moore regarding system development fees. A motion made by Alderman Hubbard, a second by Alderman Green. I'm going to call on, as you can see in your packet, I'm going to recognize Alderman Arnold, who requested that Mr. Moore be placed on the agenda to provide information for us.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So one thing when we voted in impact fees on the commercial side and the residential side, we had an idea of how it would impact development, but I think over the last few months, we've been able to see what real-life data does to the development or could potentially do to development. And I've gotten phone calls from a lot of folks in this room who want to discuss it. Some folks are saying, hey, you know, we need certain fees, but there's areas, especially in commercial, where it could be very hurtful. So finally, poor Jim, by the time he called me, I said, hey, would you mind speaking and showing us what that actually means with real data? What does it mean in your performas moving forward so that we can see how it's truly impacting everyone? So I would love it, Jim, if you would mind coming up.
Okay, let me ask a question to the board.
Yeah.
Does anyone object to him coming up? This is a presentation that, you know, has been put on the agenda.
Let him go.
Okay, Mr. Moore? No objections? You're welcome to come to the mic, and you have a limited time to speak.
What is that time?
I'll give you 3 minutes,
3 minutes.
and if they have questions, they can ask you
Yeah,
questions.
all right, sounds good. I'll try not to use that. Let me say, first off, thank you, Alderwoman Arnold, for having me over to kind of talk about how this has affected our community and our growth, something that I've waited my entire career to happen, and it finally gets here. We're on the map, and interest rates double, and we've got this fee, and oh heck, nobody can afford to do anything. So I'm going to say thanks to Andy back there for setting me up on this. He's a lot better at PowerPoints than I am. So I'm Jim Moore with GS Moore & Son. I want to talk about the effect that the impact fees, a big impact, has had on growth and development in our community. I'm going to talk a little bit more about the commercial and the industrial side than the residential. There's probably some people here that could speak to the residential better than I could at another time. I'm here wearing two hats. One is on the Economic Development Board for Robertson County, and we are stewards of hotel, motel tax, that kind of thing for Robertson County, and trying to encourage industrial growth in our area. And commercially, developing here in Springfield. So I guess I better get moving here before I run out of time. Let's see. First thing is got this plat here on Tom Austin Highway, which you will, across the street from this development would be Lowe's. I can't really point to it, but Aspen Dental, Taco Bell are on there. Then we would be looking at 4 buildings on Tom Austin across from Gupton's and Aldi's. And this has been in the works for about a year. Then we'd be doing 56,000 square feet adjacent to Hampton Inn, behind Taco Bell, behind Zaxby's on that 22nd Avenue connection there at that stoplight. Then we, in the eastern corner of the map here, we have a potential hotel pad for another hotel development. Andy, you may have to help me out a little more. Okay, thanks. Is this going to work? Okay, thanks so much. So this is just some conceptual design work that we've had done on these shopping centers. Perfect, thanks. And so right now, it would be $5 a square foot. This total project would be about 95,000 square feet. Actually, it's more, it's almost $6 a square foot. So, you know, if you want to round that out to $600,000 for that entire development. I want to invite each one of you individually, sit down with me. I'll open my books. I'm not going to put it on the screen here, but we'll look at my pro forma. We'll look at the budget for the total project. And even with me not including a value for the land, I'm in the red. I'm looking at CDFI commercial funding, which is a rural development commercial loan backed by the state of Tennessee. That's factoring in a $3 million TIF for the common areas, parking lots, stormwater, et cetera. And we have to compete with Nashville for construction. So we pay Nashville construction prices and get Springfield rents, which are about half. And our median income's $50,000, and that's just what tenants are willing to pay. So here is tenants that I have letters of intent from here. Real tenants interested in Springfield, ready to go. Had a meeting with Ulta Beauty and Starbucks at the end of last week. TJ Maxx, or at Marshalls, TJ Maxx, same thing, same company. Marshalls is the traffic driver. They're the loss leader, if you will. So they would take about 22,000 square feet. And it's kind of like selling gas at your grocery store. You get people there, that's your loss leader. You hope to break even, which is what I would do with them. The rest of those, 5 to 10,000 square feet. Ulta Beauty's 30 jobs, Marshalls is 35, and the rest of those are probably somewhere 30 to 40 jobs each. When we first discussed this impact fee, and I understand the residential component of it, it was, hey, let's let the new growth pay for the improvements in our community. We need a new sewer plant, we know that. Police department needs a better budget, we know that. Mr. Martin's doing a great job, let's keep building these awesome parks. We're gonna let the new people pay for that. Commercially and industrially, we're hurting our current residents. I think everyone's in agreement, we'd like to have these businesses here. Constituents would like to shop at TJ Maxx, Ulta Beauty, Pet Sense, we need a pet store. So $5 a square foot, we can't do it. The numbers just don't work. I'll get with each of you individually, we'll sit down, we'll open up the books, and we'll look at it. Let's see here. Another thought I kind of have on it is we've been paying commercial property taxes on this property, vacant property, for probably 30 years. To me, we've already paid the impact for nothing. Paying a higher rate commercially just for sitting there. And that's fine, because that's what it's zoned, and we can develop it as needed. If you want to do impact fee, why don't you look at when somebody annexes into the city? That's where you hit the impact fee, or possibly a rezoning. It's already been zoned this. And let's see, the last thing, just a quick rundown of Springfield versus, y'all made reference to what our neighbors do earlier and with the sanitation rates. So I said, who in Middle Tennessee in the Nashville MSA has a similar population, which is the column on the left, and a similar household income? I put White House on here because they just raised their fees, and White House said, no more fast food. Like, if you want to open a fast food restaurant, it's $100,000 just for that. So that's how they're controlling that. I use shopping center here for an example under White House at $460 a square foot. Tullahoma, Dixon, excellent comps. Dixon is on the interstate with some of their growth. Of course, their downtown is not. Tullahoma not on an interstate. We have $50,000 median income. You can see how everybody else falls in line, and you can see what their fees are. Dixon, dollar a foot for residential multifamily. 25 cents a square foot, 15 cents a square foot for industrial. We're $5. I mean, that is, if we want to shut down the growth and shut down the city, it would be better for everybody just to say that, and then I don't have to spend money on renderings, concepts, site work. I mean, this is real numbers.
Okay,
Okay,
thank you.
thank you.
Okay, now, we'll let you stay at the mic, and if, we'll go around the room if somebody has questions. And let me say before anyone starts, Mr. Moore, thank you for what you're doing.
Yeah, thank you.
I understand that you're not happy with us about the impact fees.
You need an impact fee. You need one. You
And
should have
I-
had one for a long time.
I get that, but I also want to tell you what a great job you're doing.
Oh,
And we
thank
may
you.
not be on the same page with the impact fees, but we don't want to miss the fact that you're doing a great job and you're making our city look better, so thank you
Well, I appreciate
for
that, and that's one more comment, that kind
Yes,
of
sir.
plays into, I don't do this, but a lot, if you put that $5 fee, the $9,500, guess where that $9,500 comes from? Out of the quality of the house. The developer's gonna make their money. And I wanna do all brick buildings like you've seen me doing. I wanna fix up buildings on the square. I wanna take an old Pizza Hut and make it an attractive building, get rid of EFS and stucco. So, thank you for mentioning that.
Yeah, you're doing a wonderful job, so we don't want to miss that point or miss telling you what you're making Springfield look better. Who had their hand up first,
I
Mr.
did.
Hubbard?
Yep,
I echo that,
thank you.
but also you mentioned restaurants now. I travel Tennessee. Tullahoma has major restaurants.
Yeah, they have is it Army Base, Air Force Base?
There's Air Force Base
Yeah.
there, and Manchester,
Mm-hmm,
such as Ruby Tuesdays and
sure.
and Dixon also has it. So, in my ear, from a lot of majority of citizens of Springfield, when are we gonna have those type of changes, okay? For my vision, and you know, I look at what you got on 431,
Mm-hmm,
and I can just envision it being there.
sure, me too.
So I'm just kind of throwing that out, okay?
Yeah, thank you.
Because I'm not putting down, I'm not disputing mom and pops.
Mm-hmm,
I'm a community man.
yeah, there's room for everyone.
But we have a influx of new people coming in.
Mm-hmm,
We have a younger generation.
mm-hmm,
They're not so kosher with the meat and three.
mm-hmm,
And they're tearing these river gates up, they're tearing these Clarksvilles up, you know. So we have these Logans, we have these Ruby Tuesdays. I feel that we have matured enough, our citizens understand me, that they would frequent these places.
I agree, and that's a lot of sales tax revenue that we're missing out on by not having available properties for them to occupy because we can't afford to build them.
Well, I'm just throwing that out.
Yeah, thank you for mentioning
But I
that.
thank you for what you're doing. And another thing, the apartment complex behind, is it apartment complex behind the?
It
dollar
is,
store?
yes.
Okay,
That's not mine,
okay, that's
but
right.
yeah.
Can't ask him any questions.
But is it
It was-
upscale or just regular?
It's gonna be both. It'll be some income-based and then some market, be both.
The reason why I'm asking.
So there'll be
is
opportunities for everyone.
Because you know the condominium section out there.
Mhm.
You know, a few people are concerned that, you know.
Sure.
They don't want nothing in there to take them down.
Hey,
And those been my,
yeah.
my bread and butter for 31 years.
Yeah, oh
okay?
yeah.
Okay,
All right.
Mr. Harris?
You made the comment about that you paid fees already that could be considered to be impact fees. Is it a different fee if there's a structure on that property than not a structure on the property?
He's talking about
It
property
is, it
tax.
is.
Right, there's a different property tax with a structure or without a structure?
Vacant
What is it?
land is one.
The value of what's there.
You
So-
pay, your property tax is broken into two parts, the land value and the improvement value. And so if there's no improvement there, you just pay the tax on the
And then
land.
the tax that's been paid on this land so far, the majority of that's gone to the county over the city.
That'd be the
We
case
both-
with any property.
With any on that.
Yeah, we both would have.
But it's more expensive than if it were zoned residentially or agriculture.
Within the statements that you're making, your concern leads toward the commercial end of this. And
Correct.
the impact fees that we created, my understanding of it is we can't adjust one set without both sets being adjusted. Is that correct?
Yes, sir, that's correct. You have the maximum allowable that the study, the consultant arrived at based on the formula. And so that maximum allowable, you have to adopt at a percentage. For instance, Portland did 38. We did 50% for everything except wastewater. We did 100% of wastewater. And you have to adopt that as a percentage and apply that percentage to all uses. There would be potential, and Ms. Barty can probably speak to this too, there would be potential equal protection issues if you treated one use differently than another from a legal perspective.
And
And
then
how-
you also made the comment about the $9,500. I think you was applying that toward the residential end of it.
Mhm.
That you said either they're gonna change the quality of what they're building, or they're not gonna charge the fee, or they are gonna charge the fee. And the same with that comes with supply, I would think also. If boards are costing $2 a piece and all of a sudden go up to $12 a piece, they're gonna charge that difference to whoever's buying that house, I would think.
That's
I mean,
correct.
I'm not much on, I don't know that much about building, but I would think on the residential end of it, if there's a $9,500 fee, they're gonna pass that along to whoever's buying the house. I would hope that's what they would do on that. But on this last page that you provided, with the different places and the fees and all, I'm gonna ask Mr. Martin, as far as your knowledge of the accuracy of what's, are we comparing apples and oranges or apples to apples, or is it, what's the accuracy of these rates?
I was making some notes too. There's some apples and oranges. Of the cities that are listed on here, so Tullahoma, Goodlettsville, Dixon, Portland, and White House, the only one on here that has water and wastewater is Portland. If you look at the residential number, and the multifamily number is actually $7,900 per unit if you factor in everything. But the residential number, our residential number is $4,555 per unit for non-utilities. So in order to compare apples to apples, Tullahoma has no utilities. The city of Tullahoma has no utilities. That's done by a utility board. Goodlettsville has no water and wastewater. Dixon has no water and wastewater. That's done by the county. Portland does have water and wastewater, and White House only has wastewater. White House Utility District does water. So there's a little bit of difference in the industrial also. The industrial is not $5 per square foot, it's $1 per square foot.
Here?
Or right here, yeah. Our industrial is maybe like, I think if you round it up, I think it's $1.10 a square foot, I believe. So, but the commercial, that is correct, that is, and it's actually $6, you're right, if you round it up, it's $6 a square foot.
So our closest city that's to us is White House, so we're 40 cents in comparison.
Correct, and
Per square
our
foot.
residential per unit, they're $37.35, we're $45.55. That other difference comes in water and wastewater. And White House gets their wastewater, from what I understand, gets their wastewater capital funding from like a $4,500 capacity fee or something. So White House, when you add it.
Residential?
For residential, yeah. So it ends up being fairly close to where we are.
Does Robertson County still have an impact fee? Did they do
Yeah,
it?
they do.
They do.
Okay.
So in essence, you're bringing this to our attention, but you're probably also asking something. So what is it that
I'm not
you're
asking for anything. I'm bringing it to your attention, and I'm showing you businesses that are interested in Springfield that, you know, maybe somebody else can make the math work. I cannot on one of my sites to have them in Springfield.
Okay.
And can I answer a few of your questions, please?
Yes.
Okay, great. First off, on White House, I don't know if we can pull that slide back up, but White House has $80,000 median income. We have $50,000 median income. They have an interstate. We don't. So they're going to charge at least $5 per square foot more in rent than we are. So if you look at our income compared to theirs, so then I think then also, yes, we pay a county impact fee. I did not research this to show so like Goodlettsville, for example, that would be part of the metro government, I would assume. So yeah, I could have added the Robertson County fee on here. What is not included in the wastewater discussion is that in addition to this, you still have to go purchase water, sewer tap, pay that fee as well. So it's not just do this and you're ready to start. And there's people here that can discuss the residential better than I can, but that's just a couple things that I know. And as far as passing along an impact fee residentially, we've had to lower the prices of our homes probably 20%. So
Because of the
just
fee?
because of supply and demand, there's just no demand with a 6.5%, 7% interest rate, as when the interest rate was 4%. So just the person living here making $50,000 a year, we might have to ask the mortgage guy, what kind of house can they buy? Honestly, I don't think they can buy one. So, so they're out. So yeah, prices have come down to meet that. So yeah, so we've lowered up prices 20%. As we lower them, it's harder and harder to pass along. You all insert whatever number it is to the consumer. So that's not all the fees to build a house. That's just the new fee. You still have all the other fees.
Thank you, Mr. Harris. Mr. Gregg? Ms. Arnold? Questions?
The only thing that I do question is, you had talked a lot about how you're seeing a reduction in demand for the houses, obviously, with the interest rate going up. Are you still seeing people from the commercial side be excited and be purposeful in wanting to be here if they had the buildings, or are you seeing a reduction in that want as well?
No, they're absolutely ready to be here. We've got a commercial convention coming up next week, which I hope to recruit some additional businesses. But every one of these is waiting on a response for the LOI to, hey, when can we get started, or when can we open? And we're probably looking at fourth quarter of 2024 at this point by the time we do our engineering and architectural work. So no, they all want to be here. I've got to get it to a black number for the project to make sense.
I was just curious over
Yep.
the demand on
No,
that side.
they're interested. We're still associated with Nashville. Every business wants as much to do with Nashville as they can.
Right.
Thank you. Ms. Green?
First of all, thank you for being here. I really appreciate kind of getting the insight into some of this, sitting on this side and doing all the studies that we do, we think we have an idea of how something's gonna work, but reality is always a little different. And without being educated as to what's going on, I have no idea. So I just wanna say I appreciate your transparency, your willingness to sit down. I mean, I don't doubt your word, but again, just your willingness to be so transparent with us about what's going on. And thank you again for what you're doing for the community, because I think all of the things that you're already doing and the businesses that you're talking about would be a great asset to our community. I would love to see this get into the black for you. I'm not sure at what point, I don't know how all this ferrets out, but I appreciate you bringing the information to us
Sure.
today, because then, it's already got my wheels turning, and I'm sure it probably has others to just think about, again, how we can continue to support this, and if there's tweaks needed, what we need to do.
Yeah, and like I said, I'll sit down with anybody. I'll open the books all the way individually and really show you how big effect of $600,000 does to a project like that. So
Yeah, there's growing pains all around, and I know everybody probably in the room is feeling it to some degree, so it's definitely a balancing act, and I can't promise we get it right, but we're trying, and I again appreciate your willingness
Sure.
to bring that to us.
I think the city would net more money at a lower fee. The more money would go into the city's pocket, because right now it's just stop sign. So, thanks a
Thank
lot.
you.
Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Moore.
One more question.
Yes, sir.
In your idea, then, what is a working fee? Just out of
And
curiosity.
you don't have to tell us
Just-
that
just
now.
ballpark.
Yeah, ballpark, well, several of those are none. There's one for 25 cents.
We knew you said that.
Yeah, right. So, I think functionally that would work for me, but would still be 4 times people on there would be $1. Yeah,
I was just
$1 a
curious as to
foot,
what
and
your
that,
thinking is.
and we would still be the highest. But, right now, we're so far beyond anybody else.
Mayor,
Well, not
Just
White
throwing it
House,
out
are we?
there.
We're not with White House, are we?
Thank you.
But we're not White House.
Oh, wait, just, Mr.
Yeah.
Hubbard has one question.
Sure.
see, our inquest is not personal, but it's business.
I understand completely. Yeah, it's math.
And
Yeah.
this old dog been around a long time, and I know how we got burnt over the years. We have to guard the public purse, we have the staffings and stuff, the responsibilities, understand me, of taking care
Sure.
of the services for the city. That's why we are being careful about it,
Yeah.
okay? Because we don't wanna pass on something to our rate people, okay?
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you.
That's
Thank you
not-
for coming
that's
tonight.
not personal, that's business.
And I will say, before I move on to the next agenda item, we all sat up here and made some hard decisions about the impact fees. I hate what our water, our wastewater, those departments have been hit and been hit hard. And we are always open to ideas, but we still have to get the budget correct for those enterprise funds. That's the law. And as much as we'd like to transfer some general fund money, when I said earlier in the budget that we have some money to pay cash, the law requires us, those enterprise funds cannot be commingled with general fund money. So I want to make sure everyone understands that. You just can't pull out of one fund and put money in the other fund. So we're moving on. 3.5, discuss and possible take action on a contract ratifying the Freedom Fest. Motion made by Alderman Green, a second by Alderman Hubbard to discuss. You've seen the contract in your packet. Thank you for all of you that's worked hard on getting this contract, because there were days I was wondering if it was all gonna work out and it was gonna get signed. I keep calling, going,
You
is
and me
it
both.
signed? Is it signed? Is it signed yet? Are we having Freedom Fest? I was getting a little nervous about it.
You and me both.
Questions?
Comment.
Yes, sir.
I love the concept of Freedom Fest. Now, you wanna know James Hubbard? I'm all America. And I like to see us come together and celebrate what it is to be an American. And so that's why I'm honored. And I'm also a veteran. I fought for
I was gonna point that
my
out.
big mouth. That, you know, the things that come from me, it comes from a labor of love that I laid down 9 years around the world to protect the freedoms that we have. And I'm so proud of Springfield and the citizens and stuff. And you know, I just want to be one of the drum majors to let us realize that we live in a beautiful and a free city. And in comparison to cities of our size around America, you need to know this, we are knocking it out of the ballpark.
And for people on Facebook who don't know there's activities going on in Springfield, we're gonna make those announcements in a few minutes, because we have lots of activities. And if you haven't been out to our city park to see all the activities going on, please come out. July 1st is Freedom Fest. It's from 4 to 10 o'clock. They will shoot the fireworks about, 9:30?
9:15.
And if you hadn't had any fun in a long time, I promise you, from 4 to 10, you're gonna have a blast, and it is a great day. Megan Maroney is going to be in Springfield. Oh, it's gonna be fun, and there's a whole lot of others lined up.
Can I say one
Yes,
last
sir.
thing? This is Memorial, and I'm a little touched. This is the Memorial Month. Hug a veteran, or go by and thank a veteran's family for those who didn't make it. Because this was serious business. We laid it down. I'm not just saying it for me, but it's something we should keep in the forefront. Freedom is not free, and we laid it down. And some of us, including me, are suffering from laying it down. That's all I have to say. I don't want to get emotional.
Thank you for your service, Mr. Hubbard, and for anyone in the room has served. Thank you for your service. Any questions? We're ready for a vote. Anyone like to change their vote? Please record the votes.
Motion passes 6-0.
Thank you. We're ready for our consent doc.
Mayor, without objection, move to take as one.
Anyone have an objection? Okay. Motion made by Alderman Hubbard, second by Alderman Gregg. Any questions on the consent doc? No questions? We're ready for a vote. Anyone like to change their vote? Please record the votes.
Motion passes 6-0.
Thank you. I'm going to turn it over to our city manager, since I've already run out all of his fun of talking about Freedom Fest. And if you're, you don't know that Freedom Fest is going on July 1st here in the park, Mr. Terry Martin will be out there, and all the other employees having 4th of July. City manager, Mr. Ryan Martin.
We're just gonna get him in his little rubber ducky float and hose him down again. That seemed to go over well. Thank you, Mayor. Freedom Fest, we're really excited about Freedom Fest. We've got an overwhelmingly positive response from the lineup. We've diversified that. We've gone a little bit different direction this year, since we no longer have the stage sponsor that is through the church that is handling the entertainment. So we're excited. We're expecting a crowd of, if not the same, if not larger than we've had. So we've done some enhancements with regard to food, with regard to the other amenities at the venue. Actually spoke with Megan Maroney's tour manager today, working out some of the logistics of the event. So the annual community cleanup day is this Saturday. This Saturday is the rescheduled date because the weather did not cooperate with us last time. So this Saturday, we had a couple of hundred volunteers or folks lined up to do that the last time. We're looking to get to that number again. if we can. We know that there's a chance of rain in the forecast, but it looks a lot more favorable this time. It's not going to be 40 degrees and wet. A lot of people said, well, it didn't even rain Saturday morning, but it rained overnight Friday night, and if you've never picked up cold, wet trash,
I have.
that's
Ugh.
terrible. So, also, our crews are working to get caught up on brush pickup. We had probably as catastrophic of a situation as you can imagine. First thing we did is we turned one of the trucks over, which destroyed a truck. Then we had one catch fire. And so we had one disabled with a mechanical issue, and we only have 3. So we were operating, Clayton and I were on pins and needles for a 24-hour period because we had 0 knuckle boom trucks operating in the city. And so we were looking to rent one, to borrow one, do some sort of horse trading for whatever we needed to do to try to get a knuckle boom truck that we could put on the streets in the city to do. Fortunately now, we have a couple in service, and so we're operating knuckle boom truck, but we are still behind on brush pickup. We are still working to get caught up with brush pickup. So we're working through that. Let's just hope that we get no 50-mile-an-hour winds over the next month or so. That will allow us to get caught up. The beer permit survey is out. We have over 150 responses so far. Probably up to 200 by now, so we'll be sharing that with you soon. And also, finally, and I'll wrap up on this because I know we've been here for a while with the first readings tonight. Public Chapter 300 was passed by the state legislature. Public Chapter 300 goes into effect July 1st. It requires a public comment period at each regular meeting of the governing body. Therefore, beginning in July, we will have a public comment period on the agenda. And we'll work out some of the details. Ms. Marti and I spoke about that, and we're working out. We'll have a procedure or policy, a draft policy for you all to consider and review next month, because we need to adopt the parameters around this ahead of July, because in July some cities have already done this, that they've done it for years. They've had a public comment period. Most don't and haven't, and the legislature found it to be the case that every city should do that, and every governing body. So I think it would apply to the county as well. Now, as the provisions require that the comment be germane to the items on the agenda. So that's why it'll be towards the beginning of the meeting. There will be a limited number, that allows you to limit sort of the number. Not that we want to limit public comment, but we need to make sure that we move efficiently and expeditiously for those that come to the meeting and those that, so everybody gets the opportunity to speak. And so it has to be germane, which I'm grateful for. That way it can be something you all are supposed to be considering that evening to vote on. So that's very good. It's very helpful. The way the legislation was written was very helpful. So we'll have that for you next month to consider with a public comment period on the July agenda. Mayor, that's all I have.
Thank you. Meeting's adjourned.